House Judiciary Committee Chair. It's Jim Jordan. Ohio 4 is his district. Great Republican. Jim, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm fine, Joe. Good to be with you.
Tariffs work. It turns out if you just threaten the tariffs and you act like you have the leverage that we have in the United States, they work, don't they?
Yeah, and if you're President Trump, the guy knows a little something about making a deal. I think you wrote a book called The Art of the Deal. So
yes,
if you're President Trump and you project the strength, you have the track record, and people know you're serious. People know you do what you say you were going to do. That's why they voted for him. I mean, all that factors into Mexico, the president of Mexico, the prime minister of Canada saying, "Shazam! We think we will work with you now,
yes,
President Trump, after you threatened the tariffs."
Yeah, why do you think the Democrats do what they do so quickly? Let me give you an example. Chuck Schumer walked out, held up a beer and an avocado, and said, you can't have Super Bowl Sunday now. And then you had idiots like here in San Antonio, and Joaquin Castro, who is a representative from San Antonio, talking about how this was racist somehow. No, quite literally, Mexico got in line immediately. Then Justin Trudeau claimed that Canadians shouldn't drink Florida orange juice, and then he got in line as well. I mean, can't the Democrats take a breath and wait a day even, Jim? Why are they so fast to be on the other side? To be on the other side?
Yeah, because the left controls their party, and the left is crazy. Not all Democrats are crazy, but the left that controls their party is. I mean, you can just go down the list. The left thinks it's crazy to defund the police, but they think that it's crazy to let women compete, to have women compete against men in sports. That's
right.
Crazy. It's crazy to... it's crazy to let a Chinese spy balloon fly clear across the country and then shoot it down. Those are all positions of the left that now control that party. So, yeah, that's just who they are. And they forget that President Trump has a track record here with, remember, in his first administration, he told Mexico, hey, we need you to have these people seeking asylum remain in Mexico, remain in your country, stay in your country while we evaluate their claim. And Mexico said, I don't think we're going to do that. President Trump said, no, we really need you to do it. I don't think we're going to do that. And he goes, do you want tariffs? And they go, well, Shazam, I think we'll do it. So it worked then, too. So that is how things operate when you're in the United States, the biggest country in the world, the most important country in the world, the greatest country in the world, and you have a leader like President Trump.
And a byproduct, by the way, this is Jim Jordan, House Judiciary Committee Chair, District 4, Republican, great state of Ohio. The immediate result was a couple of food companies from Canada said, we're relocating to the United States to not have tariffs. Samsung, Toyota, historically, have come to the United States to build stuff to employ Americans in Ohio and other places instead of having the tariffs. I mean, it's a two-sided win for the United States. Either Mexico and Canada do what we want, which they did, and if they don't, we have more jobs in America. What's the downside?
Yeah, it's all about, President Trump's been clear about this. He wants manufacturing to come back. I think about our district. We're one of the biggest manufacturing districts in the country.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think he understands that. He gets that. And he is doing, make America great again. This is part of his belief in what has to happen to make America great again. And I think the country understands. Certainly 77 million people knew what he campaigned on, securing the border, dealing with these kind of issues. And they supported him on November 5th.
It is Jim Jordan. Jim, let's talk about the 14th Amendment if we can. The original intent of the 13th, 14th, and 15th was to make sure we never had slavery again. It was about ending slavery. In the 14th Amendment, the whole birthright thing was to make sure that not only slaves and former slaves and their kids had American citizenship and due process and equality of law, but also looking out for American Indians or Native Americans. It never, ever, never was about having somebody come across the border in Laredo, drop a baby at a hospital and say, okay, the baby's now an American citizen, and now chain migration means the entire family can come. That was never the intention. In fact, Senator Howard, as I'm sure you know, from Michigan, added subject to the jurisdiction thereof in the 14th Amendment. So does President Trump, in your belief, have the legal standing to say it wasn't supposed to be like this?
Yeah, I do. I mean, because I think it's common sense. And you're right. That's the key section of the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Are people who are here illegally truly part of the jurisdiction of the United States? No. And it's just common sense to say someone comes into the country, let's say they come in illegally into the country, and the next day they have a child, and leave the following day. Is that child no, Americans say that's not what the 14th Amendment was about.
Right.
And the debate, if you go back and look at the debate at that time, whether it's in Congress, what senators said, congressmen said, what the administration was about, the whole thing, you look at the debate, it was never intended for how it's now being defined, saying if that happens, you're a citizen. It's just not if a diplomat comes here and they have a child, they're not they're not subject to the jurisdiction of America. They're a diplomat from another country. So that's the key phrasing, and that's what our amicus brief that we signed on to, that's what it says.
Well, some whacked out judge in Washington State immediately said, no, Trump can't do this. So it's going to be at the Supreme Court. Do you feel confident? It's supposed to be 6-3. It's really more like 5-4 conservatives on the court. What are they going to say?
I don't know. You never know with the Supreme Court. I think this court by and large has been good, but we certainly appreciate the decisions they made on the life issue, on certain other regulatory reform issues and other big issues. But I think they get some things wrong. I thought the censorship case last year should have been decided the other way.
Yes.
We'll just have to wait and see.
You know, Amy Coney Barrett is not the reliable vote that we expected, and of course, Chief Justice Roberts isn't sure if he's left or right on the given day. But this one seems to be, if you read the words and if you understand what subject to the jurisdiction thereof means, it literally means what you said. This was written for diplomats specifically. If you're here as an envoy from Italy and your wife has a baby, it's an Italian citizen, and it's not a citizen of the United States. And how are you subject to the jurisdiction thereof if you broke the law to get here? That's another thing as well.
In the country, exactly. And I think most Americans have common sense. The president says this all the time. He says, we're the party of common sense now. That's so true. They're the party, as I said before, I think it was Sarah Huckabee Sanders a couple years ago in response to the State of the Union. She said the divide in America today is normal versus crazy. And you can go down the whole list of crazy positions the left now has, including this idea that, it's fine for USAID to spend money on drag shows in Ireland, and we're going to spend money to put Sesame Street on Iraqi TV. So that's more important. That it's critical that Bert and Ernie and Big Bird are on TV in Baghdad. I mean, that makes no sense. And Americans are like, why are you spending our tax money for that? That doesn't seem to be like developing these countries and making them more friendly to the United States. That just seems weird and strange and a waste of dollars.
House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, District 4 Republican, great state of Ohio. I'm sure you've already seen this, but the USAID or USAID thing has been spun by the legacy media to mean that we're just educating and feeding people around the world, and Trump wants to take that away from people. But as you just said, and Caroline Levitt said, in front of cameras, 1.5 million for DEI in Uganda or something. You've got drag shows, as you said. We're producing a DEI play in Ireland. None of it makes any sense. Jim, why are they, well, I know why. This is sort of rhetorical, but I love your comments on it. Why is the left so afraid that we find out where our money's going?
Because this is, use whatever term you want, the swamp, the deep state, whatever. There's a bunch of lefties here. Remember, 2 years ago, when Hamas, a terrorist organization, attacked our best friend, the state of Israel, there were 1,000 people out of the 10,000 who work at USAID, 1,000 people who signed on to a letter saying ceasefire. The month after, literally 30 days after, they signed a ceasefire and say, stop a ceasefire in Gaza. Are you kidding me? The terrorists attacked Israel. They have a right to defend themselves and go get their citizens. But that's the mindset of these people. So you wonder who's coming up with these crazy ideas, Sesame Street in Baghdad and transgender DEI stuff and all everything. It's those lefties working in here. And now that we come in and say, no. We don't want American tax dollars spent. We want American tax dollars spent in a way that's consistent with the commander-in-chief, with the president of the United States, who was elected by 77 million Americans. And the left goes, you can't do that. No, that's exactly how our constitutional system is supposed to work. The guy who gets elected president, he wants the policies and the money spent to be consistent with the policy objectives he ran on and the people elected him to implement. It's pretty darn basic. But no, not to the left.
USAID says there is no oversight. We're an independent agency. Marco Rubio says, I'm the Secretary of State. You're going to answer to me. Who's right?
Marco's right. The Secretary is right. I mean, because the Constitution says there's one leader, one head of the executive branch, and it's the president. The president nominated Marco Rubio. More than a majority of the Senate confirmed him to Secretary of State. Yeah. For goodness sake, of course this is supposed to be how it works. And let's be honest. This was not created by statute. This was created back in 1961. Yeah. JFK created this agency. I assume it was probably created at that time to be some special fund to fight the Soviets, part of the Cold War. Right. And now it's morphed into, maybe they still do some of that. There's some useful stuff used there. But now it's morphed into crazy left-wing stuff that the American people find offensive.
It is Jim Jordan, House Judiciary Committee Chair. When it comes to illegal crossings, they're down 93%. Thank God. All you got to do is come in, get rid of 78 executive actions by Biden, and just let's go back and do what we did before. Jim, is there a chance something like H.R. 2 can be cut out to put it in law what Trump is doing now? Because you don't want the next guy or gal, if it happens to be a Democrat, and I hope to God it's not, to be able to go through and say, well, with executive action, I'll just open the border again. Are you going to codify something like H.R. 2?
We're going to look to do that. Step one is reconciliation to get the President Trump's done all these executive orders. He's done a number, I think over a dozen on immigration and border.
Right.
So step one is to get him the resources so he can execute those orders. And the executive branch has the money to agents, build a wall, drones, cameras, detention space, detention beds, judges, lawyers, all it takes to run this at plane flights to deport and repatriate people who came here illegally and did things. So it all takes resources. So that's step one in reconciliation.
Yeah.
Step two is to try to then make it law long-term and implement H.R. 2. And now here's the good sign. Just last week, we had a bill signing at the White House. We got Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate to approve the Laken Riley Act.
Yes, thank God.
And it was an amazing event. I mean, God bless the angel moms who were there. Laken Riley's mother who spoke, what a wonderful Christian lady.
Yes.
Talked about how tragic this was and her daughter's legacy and what a wonderful person Laken was. But all those angel moms and families who were there, we got bipartisan support to get that through. Some Democrats, a lot of them, most of them still voted no, but we got some. So maybe there's a chance after reconciliation, we actually start getting this border secure via these executive orders, via reconciliation, getting the resources to them. We can actually implement the policy and get the statute in place.
It's Jim Jordan, House Judiciary Committee Chair. Always appreciate the time and the access. Go follow him everywhere, by the way, on X, and certainly go to jordan.house.gov. You mentioned the war in Israel. It was disgusting, that attack from Hamas being the government of Gaza. That's a problem for me. But you saw widespread protests and not even letting Jewish students and teachers or professors onto campuses. And it really did buoy me to see the Chinese national who started a lot of these protests get arrested, and she's going to be deported now. Jim, I always wondered, can you go and get people who don't peaceably protest? We know 65 to 70% of the agitators at these college campuses about Palestine and Israel, what would be Palestine, they were outside actors. They weren't from the campuses. Can we continue to go and find who did these things and make them pay the price for it?
Well, I mean, if you're looking at people who are illegal migrants coming in the country, and then what Tom Homan's called the collateral, so they go find a guy who's illegal in the country, then did some other crime, and they find someone else. So that's one thing, and Tom Homan's talking about that. But I do think when it comes to people, anyone who breaks the law, I mean, what did we find out when all this was going on a year or so ago? I think it was the majority of these were protesters weren't American students or weren't even from the campus.
Right.
But we also learned that in so many of these campuses, a majority of the students are a huge percentage. I think it was like 40%. Maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I seem to remember like 40% at one of these Ivy League schools were foreign students, for goodness sake. So, I mean, I think that's a concern as well. Like, really, we're really, for American universities where Americans may want to go, we're giving those spots to foreigners, and what does that mean for the cost of education for Americans? I think there's some real policy questions we should ask and explore in there. So I think all that's part of what we need to look at.
I love that you mentioned the collateral thing, because in Boston they were complaining that a criminal alien, this guy from Haiti, was arrested. He'd been arrested 17 times, and Homan is sending him back. The guy's out the window yelling, "I'm not going back to Haiti. Thank you, Biden, for everything. F Trump," the whole thing, right? Well, there was a collateral arrest in that same place. Because Boston isn't playing along with ICE and saying, yes, we will do the detainer for you, that means you go in, you find the one bad guy you're looking for. Oh, look, there's somebody else who's an illegal alien in the place, and that person's going to be deported too. Their sanctuary city policies, Jim, are actually hurting those who are committing crimes in this country. Yeah,
and I think there's a real question if you have local officials, local and state officials who are hindering federal law enforcement lawful activities, that's a problem. And maybe, frankly, the federal government, particularly the Justice Department, needs to take a look at that. I mean, I think that's seems to me appropriate question to ask as well. I do think it was interesting, if I remember right, when I think Mr. Holman Tom was doing an interview somewhere, and they showed the Haitian saying, "I'm not going back to Haiti," and I think Mr. Holman said, "Yes, you are." I think, yes, you are.
Exactly right.
So that's the attitude that, again, that's what President Trump said he was going to do. That's the attitude that Mr. Holman has, and frankly, that's the attitude the American people voted for.
Right.
And they want that policy implemented.
Jim, allegedly we sent $177 billion to Ukraine. Numbers I've heard from Andy Biggs and others way over $200 billion. But let's say it's $177 billion. Yesterday, Volodymyr Zelensky said, "I don't know where $100 billion of that is." Jim, help me understand that he doesn't know where $100 billion is.
I find that astonishing. I saw that clip too. I guess that's accurate. I assume he was the interpreter and everything. It was accurate in what he said. That makes no sense to me. But again, I think it underscores why we need a greater accountability. Why the work of Elon Musk is so important. Coming in here and digging into this stuff and helping us figure out. We always knew there was waste. You're talking about the biggest entity on the planet, the United States federal government. I always remember the $80 hammer and the $100 toilet seat and all the stupid stuff we've heard about in the past. And we conservatives have been trying to rein it in, but it just never, in a legislative thing where you got to get Democrat votes in the Senate to pass anything, it's just tough to do. So we need someone who's going in here, fine-tooth comb, and pointing out the stupid things American tax dollars are spent on, to highlight that so we have a better chance of actually saving some money and becoming more efficient for the American people.
Yeah, but Democrats are so afraid, Jim, that you've got Schumer now and Hakeem Jeffries joining forces to present a bill that would basically stop Elon Musk from doing what he's doing. That's really what this is about. Any chance that gets through the Senate or the House?
No, zero chance. Zero chance.
But what are they so afraid of? Wouldn't they be being good stewards of our money is a good thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it sure is. And I think it's this mindset that, we don't want the country. They don't want we the people to understand exactly how the people's money is being spent. And that makes no sense to me. We're supposed to be a transparent government accountable to we the people. And if money is being sent to the stupid things we found in USAID, then obviously those kind of things need to stop.
Well, transparency is something that could be your middle name. Thank you for always availing your time to us and to my audience. Also, President Trump in the Oval Office every single day answering questions, something we didn't see for 4 straight years.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Jim, keep up the great work. Thanks for coming on today. Let's do it again soon.
We will. Thanks, Joe. Take care.
All right, brother. Thank you.